Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another week here on the Reddit Asks Us podcast. I want to just welcome and take a moment to commemorate all of my beautiful, wonderful listeners from all over the globe. I'm really, really psyched and excited that everyone is back here today for another beautiful Tuesday listening to the show. Now, it is February, everyone, and also happy Valentine's Day to those who celebrate Valentine's Day. I guess it's going to be the 14th when this episode gets released. So don't use Valentine's Day to strictly, praise your significant other if you have one. Use it to just tell your friends that you love them. Use that opportunity to tell your family that you love them. And all the people who are important to you in your life, and just make sure to me, I think it's a reminder more of relationships. Any relationship, whether that be a friendship, brother, sister, family, mother, father. I think it's just important to just remind people in your life that you care about, that you love them. So happy Valentine's Day, everybody. And also, I'm wishing everyone a nice February, because it is February. We are in the middle, the deepness of winter. So, of course, that can be a contentious time for people. But anyways, why don't we go and start off and open the show? So welcome to the Reddit Asks Us podcast, where we read and react to comments from r/Askreddit. I am your host, Luke Dick. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, remember to like, remember to comment, and subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you get your podcasts, please, please, please leave us a juicy rating and also a review. Remember, if you want to reply to one of the episode questions, just go to my YouTube channel at Reddit Asks Us and comment your response under the most recent episode, and I will read that comment out aloud for everyone to hear. So remember, that you can do that. So why don't we just start off with last week's episode? So last week's episode was a fun one. It was, what did someone say to you that was immediate red flag? I had to kind of retool the question, rephrase it, because it was a little bit long. It was like, what did somebody say with you in the first minute of meeting them? And you were like, I'm probably not going to stay friends with this person, which is very valid. So Vortex says, someone once sat next to me in the cinemas. They were watching Avatar 2. Also, great movie. I really enjoyed Avatar 2. And a good 20 minutes into the show, looked at me and just said, I farted. Like, bruh, I did not need to know that. That is a little bit like, I don't know. I think, man, maybe this is just me, but maybe I think we're just coming out. We're still, guys, we got to realize, man, coming out of the pandemic is still very fresh. We're still, 6 months out-ish from that event, sort of, or 6, 7, 8, maybe months out. We're not even a full year away, yet from being in that sort of pandemic state. And I think people are just figuring out how to socialize again, but you got to go through some trial and error. You got to do it, and Vortex, I hope that you, above anything else, maybe just went, I'm not going to be your friend. I'm sorry, I know that we're probably not going to get along, but just for future reference, as a future, little nugget here of advice, you probably shouldn't tell people that. It's probably no one really needs or wants to know that. Nobody really wants to hear that. It's not really very useful for information to anyone, and it's not an icebreaker. It's not a real good icebreaker. An icebreaker is something like, oh, I just love that part, or waiting to being excited and nudging the person next to you, going, whoa, something like that. No, I wouldn't say that telling people about your unsavory bodily functions is a great Kickstarter for conversation. So anyways, why don't we just hop into today's episode? So today's episode comes again from our favorite subreddit, Askreddit. What does everyone do but won't admit? Now, this one kind of seemed interesting to me because we are flawed as people. See, this is I was talking about this with some of my friends recently, and it was the fact that some of the movies and TV shows and a lot of movies and TV shows that are becoming very mainstream, that are trying to be appealing to a wide variety of audiences, which is, totally understandable. It can sometimes come across that these particular movie studios or companies or corporations have a sort of agenda. And I don't want to say this in terms of being like our movies shouldn't get more progressive, because I think that it's as things are getting more inclusive and progressive, that's a really great thing. All around, being inclusive. I welcome all sorts of and types of inclusivity. It's just the way that these companies tend to go about it can feel very forced, and actually kind of feels very disingenuous to the people they are trying to represent, because I find often that when they write characters who have a more progressive nature, sometimes these characters are meant to be depicted with no flaws, and coming from a sort of moral hierarchy, like a higher moral place. And not that they can't, it's just that I think when we're talking about human beings, it's much easier to relate, and it's much easier to feel the power and emotion and empathy of a story when we understand the flaws that everybody as a human being is subject to, right? Just because you might belong to a certain group in some sense, doesn't necessarily mean that you're immune to being flawed as a human being, and making bad judgments, or saying things that we regret saying, like with just human stuff, right? The aspects of our nature about being human. And I find that the TV shows and the movies that allow us to tap into this inherent struggle as a human being makes us connect with the characters even more. And it can make us feel that we can relate, because everyone has internal struggles, right? Everyone has a sense of duality. This is like sex education. This is a great example, because it's a show that depicts people from a wide array of ethnicities and sexualities and sexual orientations, and it allows you to connect with the characters and their struggles, because they're shown as real human beings, not as flawless characters who don't ever make wrong decisions, or don't mess up or screw up sometimes, but then when they do good things, we feel vindicated by them, and we feel like we can stand by them because we are rooting for them, because we've seen them go through their struggles. Whereas when we don't see struggle, we just see a perfected character. It feels forced, and it doesn't feel genuine. But when we are able to connect with these characters because of the understanding that if we were in their position, we might have done something similar, or we might have fallen victim to a given choice, then it's easier for us to relate to that. And and this is why this question just stood out to me, because there's a lot of things that we do in our daily lives that we aren't proud of, or not even say that we might be not proud of, we might be ashamed over, or whatever. But yet we all do them, and yet at the same time nobody wants to admit them. So I think it's important that we all kind of every once in a while take a look at our lives and ask ourselves, like, oh, is this like is what I'm doing, like, is it that bad to do what I'm doing, or is it right thing to do, or just a self-evaluation sort of thing, and understand that even if you also you can connect with people on the idea that everybody's weird. Everybody has weird things. Nobody's a completely flawless person. So, anyways, let's just go. Let's dive into our human flaws. One kind of erotica comment says, "Give advice that they don't follow," and then My Day Fucking Sucks replies and says, "Asks for advice and doesn't follow." I feel like I'm victim to the first one. Like, oh my god, this is just. I don't know. I I like conversation. I like philosophy. I like moral conversation, and I try to give people advice that has helped me in my own life. But the thing is that it's not like I still don't make those exact same mistakes. You know what I mean? Like for example, this happened to me just recently. This is a perfect example. Perfect example. Okay, I'm always telling people this. I'm always telling people this. I'm always telling people that I think that a lot of things that make us upset in our lives, and this goes back to something, I really subscribe to a lot of aspects of Buddhist philosophy, and this is one of the central tenets, and this is something I totally agree with, and it's that a lot of struggle and suffering and frustration in your life is caused by your attachment to things and the relationships that you create with those things, and that's normal, that's human, but it's understanding those relationships and being able to, when those relationships cease to exist, being able to understand that that's the nature of life, right? Like, when has anything ever remained the same? This never happens, right? Everything is constantly changing all the time. The universe is an inherent state of impermanence. There's no such thing as something that lasts forever. The sun will die. It will take billions of years, but the sun will die, and the earth will never exist. The earth won't exist anymore in its current form, and probably at one point it's probably, it might exist in the terms of the atoms that made it up, might be within the universe still, but it's probably going to be swallowed up by a supernova at some point in time. So I don't even know if our sun goes supernova. I have no clue, but you know what I mean. When our star dies, our solar system is over. So things in the universe are inherently non-permanent, and they never stay the same. And so when you lessen your attachment to things, because things ultimately will come and go, then we can be less frustrated, because we can understand that relationship and start to live within harmony and lessen our attachments to things. And understand those relationships. And so, for example, on New Year's Eve, this past New Year's Eve, I lost a jacket, a brand new jacket that I had just gotten for Christmas, and I wanted this jacket so bad. It was just like one of the only Christmas gifts I actually asked for was this jacket. And the first time I wear it out to a social event, an outing, I lose it. It's gone, and I was so frustrated. I was so angry. I was low-key kind of devastated, because I had wanted this jacket for so long. It's something I really couldn't really buy for myself. And maybe I could, but it wasn't the right climate for me to be purchasing this. I'm a college student. I can't be spending my money on jackets every weekend. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, I had lost this jacket, and I was so frustrated and devastated. But I ended up actually getting the jacket back, and all of this relief and all this stuff had come over me. But then I had thought about it to myself, and I'm like, well, I'm such a hypocrite. Like, what do I tell people to do? You know what I mean? Like, I always tell people, lessen your attachments to things, because things are impermanent. Jackets rip, they get destroyed, they get lost. That's the inherent part about having a jacket. If you own a jacket, if you own anything, it has the capacity to be lost, destroyed, moved, changed, stop working. Just anything can happen to it, right? It has. If you have a thing, that thing has the capacity to be changed. And I'm always telling people to then lose their attachments to these things. And then what do I? And because it'll make them less frustrated when those things end up breaking. Well, what happened to me? Jacket lost, and I was so angry. I was so frustrated. But I have to also at the same time forgive myself, because what am I going to do? Beat myself up over it, or am I going to use that as a learning experience? So I chose, I'm still working on it, but I'd probably say like that's probably one of the worst things for me is I'm the worst at giving advice and just like not following it. I'm always like telling people follow your dreams, follow what you're interested in. It's like it's that easy. And then same thing, ask for advice and don't follow. I'm less like that, but I do know I have had some friends who have had that to be like an issue in their life. It's like George Costanza. It's like George Costanza on Seinfeld. He's always like asking for advice or getting advice from Jerry, but he's like constantly sabotaging himself. You know what I mean? Like it'll be like George is seeing some girl, and he's like the episode that we just watched, and it was like George doesn't like his girlfriend's roommate, and then so Jerry's like, oh well, then you got to figure out how to get how to get rid of this roommate or whatever, and then he follows this advice, and then it ends up not working out for him. But that wasn't a great example. But you know what I mean. If you watch Seinfeld, George Costanza is a self-sabotaging guy, and it's because like he gets all this advice, but then he just purposely doesn't follow it. But yeah, I think we're all guilty of that to an extent. All right, next one comes from the Seamus. Rehash conversations or plan future ones with people who aren't there. Buns in Love says, and there's something called maladaptive daydreaming that is a totally different level where you can go from rehearsing conversations and events incessantly, trying to find an ideal version, to putting yourself in totally fictive situations and fantasy worlds for hours a day. Yeah, I don't know about hours in the day, but I feel like I do this all the time. I never know, like in the moment. Oh my God, this happens to me in class all the time, where I'm like, a question is put to the class, and then I'm like, oh, I have this thought, and so then I put my hand up and I say it out loud, and then it does not come out the way that I intended it to. And then my professor kind of looks at me and he's like, like, what are you saying? What are you saying? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm saying. I really don't. Maybe I should just keep talking until words make sense. But it doesn't work out. And then like I'll just replay that over and over in my head until I'm like, no. I should have said this. Oh, and then when I said this, oh, my professor would have definitely said this. No, this happens to me all the time. And the thing is, too, is that this happened to me a lot during COVID, too, because I had like a very, very, I was deprived of social interaction during COVID. So then when I started going out and having like conversations with strangers again and everyday people, it took a lot for me to be able to regain those conversational skills. And like even something as simple as like small talk is actually so hard. Like, what do you say? Like, how do you like weather? You know what I mean? Like, the shoes, are your shoes comfortable? Do you like your shoes? I used to be just like I got so terrible at this, but I had to really push myself for a really long time to like have small talk conversations with people again so I could learn how to talk. And it took me a long time and having very many embarrassing conversations with people. Very many times where I would just be like oftentimes like I would just skip this small talk and just go right to something deep. I would just be like, yeah, the rate at which the Earth is spinning is actually speeding up. Isn't that weird? People would be like, what are you talking about? Like, I just said that my day felt short today. Like, what are you, like, what? I was like, yes, time is actually speeding up. People are like, what are you talking about? And then I just start saying random things because I think it's like I'm trying to say interesting anecdotes where they just don't, they fall completely flat. They don't hit at all because it's completely irrelevant. But yeah, I'm a big one for the having conversations and running simulations in my head for doing that. Judge. This one comes from Just Trying 444. Sorry. Judge. We all do it. It's about being intelligent enough to not let that cloud our perspective. Maleficent Hawk 318 replies, also, I mean, sometimes it's okay and even good to judge. Sometimes people are bad for you to be around, and that's just important to recognize. Being judgmental is only a bad thing if you're overly so and do it for bad reasons, in my opinion. But even with that, yeah, we all do it. Yeah, the thing about the I don't know. The judging people is, it depends on what you mean by judge. I don't know. I feel like to a certain extent we all kind of have to judge, right? Like if I'm getting creepy vibes from somebody or just weird vibes, I need to judge their character, right? I have to make judgments. I mean, like, I feel like there's a difference between making judgments and being judgmental. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like making judgments about people is based on, like, can be based on a variety of, like, factors that play into, like, a social situation. Like, if I see someone with a American flag stitched into their backpack, I'm making a judgment about that person being from America, or an assumption, I guess. But my judgment is that, oh, they're probably from America. You know what I mean? Or something like that. Like, oh, they're probably American. And then I might make further judgments about, them based on their American nationality or whatever. But then being judgmental might be something like, I see somebody with the American flag and be like, oh, they're American, they are probably rude or something. Which is, I'm not trying to say that that's stereotype. I'm just saying that's something that a judgmental person would say, right? Or they probably, maybe rude isn't a great example, but they probably don't know much about the history of other countries. That's kind of like a stereotype of Americans, that they don't really know about other countries. But anyways, that would be judgmental, right? Because of course you're making judgments based on nothing. But I mean, this is something I'm so guilty for. Would be this is so bad. This is so bad. And I don't mean this in any, like, this is no malicious intent. This is a bad habit of mine. And it's not like I'm judging somebody like morally on this, or saying like, oh, this is what determines like whether they this is what determines for me whether they're like a cool or good person for me. I'm not saying that at all. I have a bad habit of like looking at people's shoes. This is please let me explain. I have, over the years, since I was like 11, 12 years old, I have collected sneakers. That's just something I was into, and clothing and stuff. So when I meet somebody new or something, I have a bad habit of like looking down at their feet to see what shoes they're wearing. And it's not like I care, really. It's not like I really care. It's more so that I'm just like, oh, you know what I mean? If they're wearing nice shoes, then I can just be like, oh, nice shoes. But I think that a lot of people, that's like just such a terrible habit to have, because it can make people feel like I'm just being like, yo, who that coming off the pick and roll there, boy? You know what I mean? Like, they can make people feel like I'm judging their shoes. And let me tell you this. I will judge people for this. This happened to me. Okay. I judge people for this. All right. This happened to me recently, and I was quite angry about this. I judge people. If you're wearing nice shoes, like cool sneakers, good sneakers, expensive sneakers, and I see you destroy them, I'm gonna be frustrated. Like I was in a restaurant the other day, and I was standing, and there was this like DoorDash driver or whatever who walked in, and he was wearing a pair of shoes that, like, a really, really, really nice pair of Air Jordan sneakers, and they were like that just dropped. They just recently dropped, and they were covered in mud, covered in dirt. And I was like, and people say to me that all the time, they're like, well, Luke, you know, they bought the shoes, they can do whatever they want with them. And I'm like, you know what? Fair point. But I'm still going to judge you, bro. I have to, bro. I've got to. Those shoes are expensive and you're ruining them. They just dropped. It's okay. It's like, okay, we bought these Air Jordans 5-6 years ago. If they're messed up, I'm still going to be a little disappointed and be like, damn, those are really nice sneakers. And they're worth more money now too. And they're all destroyed. I'm going to be like, what a sad day for sneakerheads. But if they're new, if they're brand new shoes and they are just already destroyed and covered in dirt and gross and disgusting, I'm like, why waste your money? Why are you going to spend all that money on a nice pair of shoes for them to just get destroyed and not treat them well? Okay, that is something I do judge people for. I don't necessarily judge people as much for wearing particular shoes, but because if someone else isn't into sneakers, it's not a crime. I don't really care. You know what I mean? I guess it's just a bad habit of looking because I look just in case they're wearing a nice pair of sneakers. And that's what I noticed about this DoorDash driver. As this guy comes in, and I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure he's a totally chill dude. I'm just saying I judged him for that. Okay, so yes, we all do it. Next one here comes from Lok Pa. Wonder if people that have since long disappeared from your life or you've only met once or twice from time to time still think about you. Ezravesti replies and says, probably so. I know I have. I've also caught up with people I haven't seen in a decade or more who said they thought of me on occasion. Some of these thoughts of others are seemingly random thoughts that have no connection to anything as of recent. Reply from Trees Feel 2. Think about how much time you have over 10 years. If you have a constant inner dialogue and you're awake 12 hours a day, you've got time for 8.22 million unique thoughts, 20 seconds per thought. If you have enough time to think about someone who you cared about and wonder how the horses in NYC can stand wearing a top hat hundreds of times over. My main takeaway from this was that you sleep 12 hours a day from Bullet 4 MV92. This is like I always think about this. There was somebody who I knew in kindergarten, and I don't really remember much about them. I forget their name. I don't even remember what their name was. For the longest time, I did remember their name. I think I started with an M or something like that. But I remember getting along with this girl, like in kindergarten, at like 5 years old. Like, I got along with her really well, and all that I could remember about her, was her haircut. She had like a Dora haircut, like from the cartoon, and that her dad owned a pickle bus, a green Volkswagen pickle bus. That's what she called it. She called it a pickle bus. And I never forgot that. And every once in a while, man, I get those thoughts coming back to me about the pickle bus, and I think about her, and I'm like, I wonder what she's doing. I wonder if she ever thinks about that interaction that I had with her, if she ever remembers me. Who knows? But that's one of the earliest memories I have of somebody, was in kindergarten, this girl telling me about her pickle bus. And I do think about it from time to time. Because every time I see one of those like Volkswagen bus type things, just type in Volkswagen pickle bus if you don't know what I'm talking about. When you see it, you know what I'm talking about. But I always wonder if they think, because every time I see one of those pickle buses too, I just think about her, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what she's up to today. Sad Panda 247 replies and says, I found out a few months back that someone I used to be best friends with and eventually came involved with died in a car accident in his mid-30s. Things didn't end well between us. He broke my heart, and we haven't spoken in over 8 years. Over the years, I've harbored a lot of pain and resentment about the hurt he caused. Anyway, following the news of his death, I was thrown into a new kind of grief over him, and all I desperately wanted to know was, did he ever still think of me over the last 8 years? I know he'd moved on, but did certain memories of us or me ever pop into his head over the years? I was absolutely flooded with so many memories in sharp relief. Some I'd completely forgotten about, and I've really struggled knowing that I'm the only one left with those memories now. There's no other half to them anymore. I'll never know if I made as big of an impact on him as he made on me. I struggle with this thought a lot. Did he ever still think about me? Edit. I wrote this before going to sleep last night. Assumed it would disappear into the ether, but thank you for everyone who responded kindly. You've all got me in tears. Receiving such empathetic reassurances genuinely means more than you can know. Thank you. Well, I can tell you, Sad Panda, that most likely that person did think about you. And the thing is, too, is that, you know, especially when you have deep relationships with people, relationships are always mutual, right? It's always a two-way street, no matter what the relationship was. And I think that if anyone is telling you that they've never thought about somebody who, from a past relationship over years after you've broken up with them, like there was a comment here, I don't think I'm going to be able to get to it, but I did see someone say that they imagined what their life would have been like with a crush they had from like elementary school, and people, and like how they think about that, and how people do that. I think it's like those are such normal things. Like if you thought about what your life would be like for the rest of your life with somebody that you dated in the 5th grade, that is normal. And the thing is that we don't ever talk about this sort of stuff. So you know, it's always so shrouded in mystery what other people think about. You know what I mean? It can be so confusing. You know what I mean? We got to break down these barriers, man. That's why the internet is so awesome, because you get people putting their rawest, realest thoughts out there. I seriously don't understand for the longest time how people like just didn't know what was going on in the minds of other people. Because that's the thing, is you can meet somebody, especially through the internet, that is so similar to you, but yet lives in a place that's like completely geographically different, completely different, maybe even culture or place where they were brought up in the culture there. But yet somebody can yet still be so similar to you in personality and have similar thoughts and feelings and all this sort of stuff. So that is totally normal. And if anyone's telling you that they haven't thought about somebody from their previous relationship, they are definitely lying. So next one comes from Suvan Pan. Think about compliments given by someone years ago. SD Woodchuck says, when I was a freshman in high school, I had this super shaggy hair until I got frustrated with it and cut it. This girl in my social studies class noticed it, lit up, and said, "I can see your face." I forget what I said in response exactly, but I was clearly shy about it, and she went on, "It's a very good thing." It's now 25 years later, and I never grew out my hair again. Wow, that's nice. I always tend to remember people when they give me compliments about my clothing and stuff, or my shoes. Like I was walking down the street maybe a couple months ago, and this guy, like I was listening to like music on my headphones, just kind of walking, you know, and I had a nice outfit on. And this guy kind of like, he kind of looked at me as we walked past, and then he like was like, "Oh, nice shoes, man." And I was just like, "Oh, thank you." You know what I mean? And that's another little interaction that I won't forget. I just remember him being so genuine and nice, and I was like, "Oh, that's really nice." For you to say that, because people don't have to say that. People do not have to say that. If you have the opportunity to give somebody a compliment, especially for something that you like notice, and you don't have to draw it out. You don't have to make it bigger than it is. You don't have to, now prolong yourself with the conversation. Just tell them that you like something. If you notice it, speak it into existence, right? Because other people definitely like to hear that sort of stuff. Okay, let's do maybe one more comment here. Let's go and say, okay, Opals and Bananos. We're all going longer than 1 week between bedsheet washes. This has got to be true, man. Come on. Do you seriously wash your bedsheets every week? Every single week? I'm concerned, okay? If you're washing your bed sheets every week, then I'm starting to think, like, especially if you only have like one set. I only have one set, right? It's not like I can just tear them off and put on a new set of bed sheets. I feel like 2 to 3 weeks is generally pretty normal for people. If you're doing it once a week, bro, you have too much time on your hands. You've got way too much time on your hands if you're washing your bed sheets weekly. All right, I'm kind of concerned at that point. Honestly, I'm kind of more thinking like, really? Every week? What? You don't do other things? You're not busy? Just bed sheets every week. Okay, interesting. I'll have to note that. See, now we're judging again, folks. Now we're judging again. That easy, that simple. Honestly, this podcast is low key all about judging. Last week's episode and all the week's episodes before, I'm like, it's all about judging people. Okay. Anyways, why don't we wrap it up here? So thank you so much for tuning in to the Reddit Ask Us podcast, where we read and react to comments from r/AskReddit. I'm your host, Luke Dick. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you get your podcast. Please leave a rating and also leave a review. That helps so much. Remember, if you want to reply to one of the episode titles or episode themes or central whatever question of the episode, then go comment that on my YouTube channel at Reddit Asks Us, and I'll read that comment out loud on the following week's episode. I hope everyone is going to have a happy Valentine's Day. Wish those in your life that you love them, and that wish them the best of days. And let's hope that we can get through the rest of this winter, because it's not going to be that much longer, and it's coming in. It's coming in on a close, everybody. It's one day at a time. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see y'all next week. Thank you. Love you. Bye.